This manhwa starts off with a young girl's execution via guillotine in front of a gathering crowd. This young girl is the protagonist and her name is Keira, the daughter of a nobleman. This morning she was led by two individuals towards the guillotine executioner stool. Her visage struck with terror before the beheading punishment begins, she's brought to face her father. Her cruel, deceived father stands proudly as he watches his daughter's final moments. Claiming she has deceived everyone, and from his mouth comes the command to execute the panic-struck Keira. Watching on from another place, a beautiful girl with blonde hair dressed in a gorgeous red gown calls herself a father. Mastered move away from the execution site. Keira undermount, bound by a cord, tries to call her father. Her heartache as she watched his Cosette take her father away. Cosette looks at her with a cynical smile before departing. The day before the execution day, Cosette visits her in prison. She shows Keira something water magic through the bush. Water magic. Here I can see water spirits swimming like fish. Keira's ability to see these spirits is proof that she's her father's true descendant. The only reason the pure Keira previous turned into a centaur is because you are not illegitimate daughter in the Grand Duke, but it's quite sad if that isn't the real truth, says Cosette. After Cosette says everything she wants to say, she leaves Keira in the dark and cold prison with her mouth muzzled and hands bound. Then on the day of the execution, curious head on the chopping block, Cosette stands near her father, looking at Keira triumphantly. The executioner signal is given and time frees it. On the table in the Grand Duke assumed his title of prophecy emerged. It predicted that a constant crisis would occur soon. The Imperial Guardians only needed to remember one thing. No matter what happens, there is only one daughter who will become a scientist. The family of the water spirit of Parvis will choose a goddess. When the party's princess comes of age, she can communicate with the great water spirit Beatrice. She will bring rain to the continent cursed to barrenness by demons people call the sickness. Keira is the first daughter of loving Parvis. According to the prophecy, she will grow into a status. She grows up to be a modest lady, hoping for one thing: to gain her father's love. She was a little girl who lost her mother at young age and longed for affection and attention from Ludwig. After enduring much suffering, Keira begins to shape her own personality. She learns faster than others and strives to become a successor with all her might without any shortcomings. Keira tries to make her father happy, but Ludwig never pays her any attention. Until one day Keira pretends to fall down the stairs to seek attention, but in the end, her father still doesn't come to visit her. She spends 18 years of her life trying to earn her father's acknowledgement, and on that day of only Cosette had appeared. The slender blonde-haired girl with wavy locks walked in. Her hair cascaded him at golden hue reminiscent of the morning sun's glow. She approached with graceful sway of her skirt. This girl's name is Cosette, the eldest child of the Grand Duchess Rowena. She dressed Ludwig as father. "Are you trying to suggest that you are my child?" Ludwig asked. This was something incredibly odd, as Rowena Weinberg had been declared unable to have children due to her diagnosis count, or even a sack had been in hiding for 15 years. Rumors circulated that Market Edinburgh was framed. However, the fact that Cosette was Rowena's biological child was highly questionable, even though she bore a strong resemblance to the Grand Duke at that moment. Keira gaping, disbelieving the scene before her that her father had another daughter aside from her, the Duke Ostra. When approved the truth of her claim that Cosette was his child, he was puzzled, not knowing which one was his true offspring, and on that day Keira's like began to change. One morning in the luxurious family dining room, she sat across from Cosette, listening calmly while Cosette chatted ceaselessly, recounting how the butler led her to her plush room. It was the first time Cosette slept in a room with a soft bed. She seemed delighted with her new room. After breakfast, she asked her to show her around. Due to Cosette's excessive talking at the dining table, Cosette accidentally bumped her elbow into a glass, causing it to fall and spill water on her dress. Keira told her half-sister she would ask the butler to find her an etiquette tutor care set. Having finished her meal, Keira left the dining table. Cosette nearly ran after her. Their interaction became the topic of conversation among the servants. Cosette was kind of the servants and tried to approach Keira by curious side. She was hard to approach you, her authority. Yet day by day, Cosette increasingly resembled the Grand Duke. Elsewhere, under the scorching sun, Keira was practicing swordsmanship. Her emotions overflowed, her mind filled with thoughts of Cosette. Who was Cosette really? And why does she suddenly claim to be her father's child? simply because she had a face exactly like his. It was suspicious, given that she lived as a commoner, however, had no reason to worry, for she was her father's true daughter and there would only be one sentence born. Furthermore, only one person could will the power of the spirit. This meant that the impostor would be ousted if Cosette managed to master that magic. As she carried a bunch of flowers, she caught sight of Cosette with cynical expression. The innocent-looking girl before her would later become a source of calamity. "For why are you so cold towards me?" "I want to friends with you, Keira," Cosette said. Keira stated that she had no intention whatsoever of being friends with. To set a cruel remark, escaped Cosette's lips. She said that Keira wasn't Lou's biological child. The girl advanced toward Keira. "The fact that you are an illegitimate child from who knows where, I don't care. My mother was trapped and then flood. She did that to gain the title of Grand Duchess, even though it's unforgivable," Cosette said. Hearing insults hurled at her mother, Keira lost for temper. She drew her sword toward Cosette. She told her, "Cosette Weinberg, if you insult my mother again, I will render you speechless for good," Keira said sternly. The wind blew rustling the leaves. Keira drew her sword towards Cosette's face. Base at that moment, several servants arrived and quickly approached. Their faces were filled with panic. The servants were worried that there might be a dispute between Cosette and Keira. Before leaving the scene, one of Cousin's attendants shot a cynical, glancing Keira's direction. True light transition into night. Ludwig was sitting in his study, writing, bathed in the warm glow of the lamp. Memories from several years ago resurfaced. The one in question was Cosette's mother. Whatever her relationship was with Ludwig, it was clear that she carried his child. They had hidden the pregnancy from the public at that time. Then a knock was heard on the door. Keira entered wearing a beautiful green dress. Her long hair was tied back in a ponytail. Little Bit discussed the issue from earlier that afternoon, and Keira had pointed her sword at Cosette. In his tone, Leonard appeared to be favoring Cosette more than his own daughter. "In this matter, that girl's just a commoner, not like you receive in education, so from now on think before you act," Ludwig said. Feeling cornered by her father, Keira felt the need to defend herself and assert that she wouldn't accept being labeled the result of her mother affair. She couldn't stand her mother being insulted like that. Her father's words struck deeply at Keira's heart. After that, she walked out of her father's room without uttering a word. In the darkness of the corridor of memories of her childhood flooded Keira's mind when her mother lay helpless and sick. Her beautiful mother tried to reassure her that Keira was the only heir of the palace spirit. Suddenly, Keira felt a dizzy spell, stumbling and falling in the corridor. She was overwhelmed by the burden of her life. She felt a deep hurt, as she was the one living her life as loveless child, not Cosette. It felt incredibly unfair. In that darkness, the figure of Cosette emerged with an air of arrogance about her. "Bogger, why are you crying alone here? You're going to be ridiculed," said Cosette. Keira brushed away Cosette's hand as she tried to touch her carer. "Wonder how Cosette could be in this room." Cosette explained that Ludwig allowed her. "He used this room just like he did with Keira." "Who are you talking about?" "Your father, the first daughter of the Parvis family, is me, not someone like you. Appeared out of nowhere but me," Keira exclaimed. Cosette merely laughed cynically and brought her face closer to "Curious if I stay by your side. Eventually I will take everything from you," Cosette said. This morning, the sky is blue and clear. A deputy commander named Joseph enters Keira's room. In her daily activities, Keira is a commander and Joseph is her subordinate. Joseph came this morning to report about a case of magical creatures in the northern region. Commander Joseph, who's handsome, arrived. He reports about the appearance of evil spirits. Ultimate dangerous. The troops requested a substantial amount of assistance. Keira elaborates on her strategy at length, and eventually Commander Joseph complies with her at that moment to servants or eavesdropping and discussing how Keira became a commander. Due to her family tradition, the descendants of the Parvis family, upon turning 18, would become the commander of the Parvis Knights for 3 years. Typically most of the authority is delegated to the deputy commander and the title of commander is mainly for show. The servant's words suggest Keira doesn't know anything that is really acting like a true commander. The servant continues to talk negatively, spreading rumors about Keira and her 2 friends. They are unaware that Keira can hear what they are saying. "You will be held responsible for what you say," Keira exclaims. Her friend asks the servant who spoke ill to apologize to Keira. However, the servant remains insolent and even claims that Keira isn't Lovely's biological child. Without many words, Keira slaps the servant and asserts that she is the one in charge in this household and has the right to punish anyone who disrespects her. Finally, the servant accepts 100 lashes as punishment from Keira. The servant screams for help from Cosette. Later in the evening, when Ludwig returns home Cosette rushes to meet him. She begs Ludwig not to dismiss Mina as Mina is Cosette's servant. Cosette recounts what just happened. Her father's angry and wants Keira to logically explain why she administered 100 lashes to someone. Keira explains that the servants were saying inappropriate things about her. However, when questioned, the servants responded differently. The servant said that serving mascara is very difficult because she's too cold. Cosette was being two-faced in front of her father, pretending to cry again as sympathy. Keira immediately refuted that what was being said. It wasn't like that at all. Everything they were saying was the opposite of what she had heard that day. You truly infuriate me, Keira. What's with that? You don't like Cosette's servants? Her father asked. Roger explained that it was a misunderstanding and that all of this was a set of drama trapper. Without hesitation, Ludwig slapped Keira's smooth cheek. The young girl lost her words. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart. Parvis expressed his disappointment and Keira's father Coraz stuttered, however. Let him turn away from his daughter, refusing to be addressed as a father. He issued an exile decree for Keira, stating she should stay outside the mansion for a month, and during that time he didn't want to see Keira's face. After Ludwig left, Cosette approached Keira with a cynical and mocking expression. She was disappointed that Keira only received exile instead of 100 lashes. Feeling deeply hurt, Keira pushed cousin's body. Are you angry? Well, if you want to be more humiliated, why didn't you pull my hair earlier? Cosette taunted. In that place of exile, Keira could only gaze at her father, walking with Cosette outside with an immense sense of disappointment. At that moment, she tried to convince herself that if she could prove she was a user of the part of spirit, Cosette would disappear and surely she could win her father back. She knelt down and begged for the Parvis water spirit to rise before Cosette. True enough, for wish came true. A magical light appeared, giving her guidance. This is the day when Keira will inform her father that she can control the water spirit. However, the unexpected happens on Cosette's birthday. She demonstrates her father and the attendant guests that she can control the water spirit. Almost as if she couldn't believe this situation before her and afterward, cries rang out declaring her to be an evil sorceress who can summon demons and that she must be imprisoned. That day was the day when Lovely looked at his daughter with cold eyes, then the sentence of beheading was carried out. Something magical happened after the execution was done. Time around on a day when Karen was waking up from her sleep here. Woke up this morning with a strange feeling holding her neck. The dream felt incredibly real to her, the sensation of her neck being severed and the chilling feeling. She thought she was in the afterlife. She asked her servant Rose if Rose was executed too. Of course, Rose was utterly confused. Rose, thugger, mistress, was still delirious. Zeke. Is he also dead? Maybe it's different for me, but he's innocent, Keira said. Keira got out of bed and ran to look for her younger brother. She remembered how Zeke, her younger brother, would often visit her in prison. Zeke suggested they escape, but Keira refused because she didn't want her brother to get involved in her problems. Nonetheless, Zeke loved his sister deeply and didn't want harm to come to her. Intended to come back tomorrow and asked his sister to reconsider his plan. Keira ran through the corridor wearing only pajamas and no shoes. The servants who saw this were perplexed, as this wasn't a normal sight. Every current state of mind, Keira was searching for Zeke. What's wrong, sis? The gasped. If father sees you like this, he'll be angry. Keira remained silent for a moment. She was relieved to see her younger brother well. But she was still puzzled by the situation. Is this not the afterlife? Keira asked. Knowing that her sister was still groggy, Zeke asked his servant to take her back to her room. Keira remained silent, trying to understand the situation around her. Many faces were familiar, but they appeared younger than she remembered. Zeke informed her that today was August 13th, 1925. At that moment you realized that this was the year she turned 18. It meant she to travel back in time. However, she didn't know who sent her back here. She recounted her nightmare to Zeke about the time she was sentenced to death. Yet Zeke assured her not to worry too much because it was just a dream. Keira invited Zeke to have a meal together and Zeke reminded her not to be late, as she hadn't greeted Ludwig. Keira remembered how naive she was back then, greeting Ludwig and relying on someone who had never even seen her. If this was her past self, she didn't want to rely on something futile. Now Keira only one is spend time that people around her last Megan is sleep blood. We had a bad dream. He shot Deputy Commander Joseph, trying to fend Keira. It was about to be executed. In his dream a little bit, Herky recalled his name softly and helplessly. When he woke up, his heart was pounding heavily because the dream felt so real. On this bright morning, as the sun warmly illuminated Little Mix at his desk, working on his reports as he usually did, his assistant brought up Keira's matter, mentioning that Keira who usually greeted them in the morning and show up today. After that led her to report, the Keira was seen walking through the hallway wearing only pajamas. That sounded very unusual, Your Excellency. You seem unwell. How about you take a brief rest? His assistant suggested. Ludwig mentioned that he had slept poorly last night due to a nightmare. It was a terrifying nightmare. Although he couldn't recall the details, he knew there was a shattered feeling from that dream and it had left a deep impact on him. Currently, Keira, dressed in a yellow gown, stood in front of a glass bookshelf. Today was August 13, 1925, which meant it was 2 months before Cosette's arrival. On the predetermined date, Cosette would attend each party where all the upper-class nobles would be present. She would announce her presence in the capital and then reveal her powers, still echoing in care as mine was Cosette's statement. Truth is, you are the original one. Keira question. How? If she was the genuine daughter and Cosette was an artificial creation, Cosette could exhibit her powers. The prophecy clearly stated that only one princess could call upon the spirits, but the prophecy be wrong. Perhaps the Beatrice she had seen was an illusion spell. Keira felt exhausted thinking about all this and decided to be cautious, making decisions as they came. If an emergency arose, she could flee. Keira began jotting down everything she had seen before her death. If what she had seen was the true spirit, that her task was to figure out how Cosette had summoned Beatrice. Keira also intended to search for magic capable of reversing time. She had never heard of such magic before and planning to ask the sorcerers residing the palace tower. A servant entered and informed her that a doctor sent by Ludwig was here to examine her. Keira instructed the servant to dismiss the doctor. Karen proceeded with her daily tasks. Currently, there was a test for numeric candidates. She joined Sir Joseph in overseeing the candidates who were taking the night's examination. As it was already past this time, Keira knew would pass, and who wouldn't? How do you know if they passed or not when you've never seen the fight? Said Sir Joseph. Keira explained that she had gathered the information from rumors. In reality, her relationship with Sir Joseph was so much strain at the moment, but not too bad because Keira was the eldest daughter of the Grand Duke. She held the position of commander and due to her connection, Sir Joseph became the vice commander when working alongside Sir Joseph. Keira felt her shortcomings were magnified to protect her authority. Keira often debated with him. It was embarrassing. Yet ultimately, Sir Joseph was the one who defended her until the end. Keira apologized to Sir Joseph for her behavior. All this time she had been hostile towards him, seeking recognition just like Sir Joseph did. She desired recognition like anyone else. She no longer wanted to argue or criticize Sir Joseph. She entrusted all her beliefs to him, knowing that Sir Joseph was reliable in all of this. You no longer needed to ask for her opinion on this matter, and the final selection of the knights had been completed. I congratulate you all on your acceptance into the Order of Parvis Knights. Keira said to all those who have passed from the podium tonight, there was a welcome party for the new knights and there would be a drinking celebration. Keira informed them that she would treat everyone who had passed the examination. Later Keira apologized for cold attitude towards her subordinates. She wouldn't be attending tonight's event as she didn't want to disrupt her subordinates' enjoyment. Eventually her subordinates reported to Sir Joseph asking him to bring Keira to the event so they could have fun together. On the way home, passing through beautiful flower fields, Sir Joseph's mind was filled with Keira's words directed at him. Those words felt like a refreshing breeze that swept across his face and heart. It turned out that Keira hadn't hated him all this time. He looked up at the sky and in his eyes today Keira seemed deliberated. care of herself went to meet her father first. She thanked her father for sending the doctor in a room with the sunset as the backdrop. Keira and her father locked eyes. "You could have made a written report." "You're just wasting your time," Ludwig said. Keira then stated that she would decide to stop saying her morning greetings and apologize for disturbing her father. "Do as you wish," Ludwig replied. Then Keira asked for one more thing. She wanted to step down from the position of commander of the troops for a while. "I want to take a 2-month break, both mentally and physically." "I am tired," said Keira. "Too long," Lovely replied. "I agreed to 1 month." Keira negotiated Keira then bargained for 1.5 months in her mind. She knew that when Cosette arrived she would have to step down from that position as well. It was better she resigned herself as there were many things to investigate. Ludwig realized that his daughter was truly exhausted by her situation, so he finally granted Keira permission for a 2-month leave. After Keira left, Ludwig sat still in his chair, lost in thought. His word, Zekrom in his mind, like the tolling of church bells. "I don't bother your majesty." Again with reasons like this. "I am truly tired. So please allow me, your majesty." "In that case, I'll take my leave, your majesty." Little Big remained silent. Keira referred to herself as your majesty. In another part of the house, Keira sat in a chair while pouring tea. She was curious about her father and what life would be like after his death. Would certainly be happy with his daughter. Or would the Empire be able to avoid all the disasters in the prophecy? Keira fell silent. "Is everyone happy with my death?" She said her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Sir Joseph. He invited her to sit and engage in conversation. The warmth of the sunset sun seeped through the glass window of the room. Keira apologized to Sir Joseph for the misunderstandings that had occurred between them. Sir Joseph informed her that there would be a welcoming party tonight. However, Keira didn't want to attend, fearing her presence would disrupt others. She also mentioned that she would step down as the commander. The surprised Sir Joseph "What are you saying, sir?" Joseph asked. "From the start it wasn't my position and I just want to return to a more appropriate position," Keira explained. She added that her silent presence during the party would make things awkward and prevent her subordinates from enjoying it. She believes she wasn't a good commander, as her position was largely due to her extensive connections. Sir Joseph argued that Keira's mindset was mistaken. Who wouldn't be proud to be led by Keira? However, if she just sat there without expression, it would be as if Her Majesty was sitting in silence. And who dare approach her still? Keira held firmly to the belief that nobles shouldn't laugh excessively. Sir Joseph stood up, smiled and extended an invitation. The party was about to begin. Keira, who was initially, stood up and followed Sir Joseph to the welcoming party. She now felt confident and valued. A festive atmosphere filled the opening party. Laughter echoed everywhere as they welcomed their commander, Sir Joseph, gesture for the young lady to take his seat. A woman in a white dress named Raina Gardner greeted them and the girls struck a drum filled with wine, prompting applause. Cheers and jubilation rang out and everyone began to toast. Unintentionally, Keira got caught up in the atmosphere, clapping along. Karen was still caught up in the party when a friend of Joseph's approached her, offering her a jumbo-sized glass of wine. The man encouraged Keira to drink it. However, as Keira is about to take his ship, the guy took the glass from her hand and demonstrated that the method was to gulp it down in one go. Joseph's friend refilled the glass and instructed Keira to take a gulp. Seeing that her team really wanted her to drink this, Keira reluctantly complied and took a gulp. After work, she received praise from them, saying that she was a great commander. "I'm no longer a commander," Keira said. "I want to take a short break." She conveyed her apologies hurting for not being awarded commander and thanked them for their assistance. She announced that she would temporarily transfer the position of commander to Joseph. "Are you hurt?" "We've grown close, but now we're leaving. I believe we'll come back soon." Her subordinates could understand that Keira hadn't taken a break at all until now. Everyone there decided to drink until morning for Keira. Keira got drunk and at this moment she was being embraced by Rowena. Her head was spinning and her vision was blurry. Two of her drunken friends were rambling about her father who was unapproachable. The terrifying Ludwig suddenly in her drunken and semi-conscious state, Keira said. "Because he's the kind of person who wouldn't even blink if I died. I studied that rest for him and I even fell down the stairs to get his attention, but he never even glanced at me to train. Various curses were thrown at Ludwig. This was all because Kieran was too kind-hearted and they urged her to rebel against him. Now her subordinate supported Kieran, standing up against her father a bit and giving herself time to refresh. After the party and getting drunk, Keira passed out. Joseph instructed Raina to take Keira home using a horse-drawn carriage in the late night hours that transitioned to dawn. Joseph felt relieved because it seemed that Keira had enjoyed herself today. He was currently discussing commanders with Wilford would be saw as arrogant from the outside, but deep down he recognized her as a very gentle girl. Joseph leaned against the bar's wall and as he thought of Keira, his heart raced and his face turned red. "What do you mean by cute, Derek?" "Such impolite thoughts," Joseph said. The warm morning sunlight streamed into Keira's room. The girl woke up with a throbbing head. She asked her servant to cancel her schedule for the afternoon. Then, as Keira sat in front of the mirror, her loyal servant brushed her hair. She mentioned that the spirit reference Keira had requested would soon arrive and be sent to the library. "Rose, what will you do if you could live as you please?" Keira asked the servant. Rose said that she would like to travel and visit places she had never been before, because Rose had never taken a vacation here, allowed her to go on holiday. Rose appeared joyful, even though it was only to a neighboring city, as this was a new world of thought crossed Keira's mind. Where she had been born and raised in a family other than the Parvis family, how would she feel living in a different world? Keira asked Rose about the lives other noble women lived. Rose was unsure, as she wasn't a noble woman herself. She then recommended novels that depicted everyday life. Despite the slightly odd themes, Rose hoped that Keira would choose a book that suited her nature. Later that afternoon, Keira sat in the garden wearing an orange dress and hat. She was accompanied by Robot and 2 female servants who provided her with tea. "Robert, have you ever seen spirits by chance?" Keira asked. Robert said he had never seen spirits and that only those that harvest lineages could see them. Keira then asked Robert to find out where people who could see spirits were located. If it were for academic purposes, there was no reason for her to be suspected. Keira felt fortunate to have spent her time studying. The only thing left was to attend parties and make friends. At least she was no longer afraid to socialize with girls her age. The only events she had attended were national events with her family. Perhaps rumors had spread that she was a boring person. In the midst of the scorching midday sun, Sir Arthur arrived, bringing her honey water to help with the hangover. It was Joseph who had requested it to be delivered to Keira. "Wait a moment, Sir Arthur," Keira said. She knew that Sir Arthur was skilled at socializing with many people, which is why she asked him to teach her. She sought assistance as to where to start this socialization process. Arthur suggested that Keira smile as people tend to be drawn to those who smile easily. He told her that she seemed intimidating when expressionless, much like her father Ludwig. However, he emphasized that first impressions weren't that important. What mattered was having a flowing conversation and finding friends with similar interests. If Keira enjoyed hunting for monsters, Ludwig recommended watching opera and theatre. A normal and feminine hobby, but should do what you enjoy, Arthur said later as bedtime approached. Rose brought Keira the novels she ordered. Mackay picked up one of the novels. Rose advised her not to read it before bed. The novel will keep her up all night curious about the next part of the story. As Rose left, Keira began reading the book, its contents for the love story between nobleman Graham and a woman whose name was not mentioned. The woman fell in love with the Count and frequently walked with him in the garden. The story touched on private scenes between the couple. Keira threw the book onto the floor, her face turning red. What book did Rose bring? Was the lingering question in her mind. However, she was extremely curious about the next part of the story. The following is the content of the book Keira was reading. I ran into Count Graham's arms. At that moment time seemed to stop. "If I'm with him, I'll be happy forever, as small birds chirped." Keira was still in her bed reading. Reading a book, the story of the lady in the book kept her from sleeping at all. When Rose entered in, Saka is still holding the book. "That's why I told you not to read before sleeping." "Is the story good?" Rose asked. Keira was deeply impressed by the story. A story about the main characters. School Days was very captivating to read. Then the story of the dance party at night. She didn't expect there to be such a story. Rose offered that there was a side story to the book, and Keira happily agreed to read it. Since there were no scheduled activities today, Keira planned to go to the library. Rose went to meet her fellow servants and ask where the side story book is. Stella and the summer season. Servants were surprised that Keira to want to read such a story. Meanwhile, in the library, Carol was immersed in imagining the continuation of the story, causing her to lose focus on the spirit notes she was reading. There were many books in a library that discussed spirits. She just wanted to know what this was. A natural power. Even the partner's family, the only ones with the heritage and spirit art, didn't understand much about spirits. This was because their church dared not research their deity further. Therefore there were only a few notes about spirits. In the midst of this serious atmosphere, she searched for spirit books. She overheard the servants talking about the book, Estella, and the summer season. From the first glance of love to romantic scenes on the first night, Keira loved it. She who wanted to join could only peek from behind the wall. Among the servants, noticed their lady peeking. They immediately explained that it was work time and went back to work, leaving Karen. Terawat wearily regretting that she had been too concerned about her image preventing her from being honest with herself. She admitted to Rose that she was really intrigued by the love story. This morning the front yard of his house let me was about to leave. However, he suddenly realized that he hadn't seen Care recently. Normally when he goes out, Carol would accompany him. A servant Rowe, but explained that Care was busy researching spirits in the library. Robert also mentioned that a few days ago Keira sent someone to the temple to investigate spirits and find out about people who can see spirits aside from those who control them. Littlebit was puzzled by curious nature. There was no need to worry. As long as she came from the Parvis family, that ability would naturally manifest itself suddenly. Leopard felt a headache. Maybe it was the effect of the recurring nightmare. Meanwhile, in another part of the house, Keira sat in a chair looking at the servants chatting outside. She hoped that someday she could join them. Currently she still felt embarrassed. She remembered Cosette, who wasn't embarrassed about things like this. This is the story of Kozak from the past, who often ate cake with the servants. Care often scolded Cosette because as a noble she should maintain her dignity. They used to argue a lot here and ponder because what Cosette said was true. Then she returned to the letter she had written. She wrote a letter to her grandfather, Marcus Simon Edinburgh. He was a greedy and cruel Marcus who used his granddaughter as she willed to strengthen his status. Even the circumstances could unfold as in the past. I need someone who can help prevent it. Inside the house. It's nearly impossible to avoid His Excellency's size, so let's meet outside. Let's meet a party hosted by another family. That was the content of Keira's letter to her grandfather, and she handed the letter to Rose. Carol wanted to know which party her grandfather would attend. Rose is very happy to hear that Keira would attend the party. There's a first time Keira would go to a party on her own initiative. Imagining Keira dancing under the chandeliers made Rose very excited. The eagerly awaited dance party day arrived. However, Keira argued with Robert because he had discarded the invitation to the party for her. Her father asked, "Are you planning to accept it?" Since ancient times, our family has remained neutral. We're a family blessed by the gods and shouldn't get involved in political conflicts. What's the matter with? Her father asked. "I'm just tired of this house," Keira replied. She said to her father that this house felt suffocating. Ludwig then asked his daughter to explain herself how she was dealing with this matter. "Because Keira wanted me, friend other families." Keira replied that she was reaching the optimal age soon for marriage. She needed to attend dance parties, interact with others, and experience love stories. That's the essence of it. And importantly, she wouldn't bring any harm to the family. Ludwig granted Keira permission to go. Before leaving, Ludwig asked Robert to report everything about the dance party. The next day, Keira sent a letter to her grandfather and planned to attend the Chatty France family's dance party. At that moment she saw Joseph and Arthur arriving, so she went out to meet them. Since they had met for a while, the three of them talked in the gazebo. They discussed Sir Arthur's hobbies. Miss Keira had talked about this with him before. However, he initially denied having this hobby. Then Arthur mentioned that he enjoyed going to casinos. He invited Keira to join out of the casino this week. Keira was torn. If she refused, she might hurt Sir Arthur, but as she accepted, she knew it could also be hurtful. In the end, she reluctantly agreed to Sir Arthur's invitation. After two friends left, Keira truly didn't understand what was happening to her. First she read a racy novel, and then she accepted an invitation to go to a place like that. At least you want to try something new in her life. She can realize that Sir Joseph had returned and handed her immune-boosting medicine placed in a glass bottle. You also mentioned that on that night all of the subordinates were delighted with Keira's presence. This time he hoped it would be even more enjoyable if Carrot came. Once again, I ask for your assistance this time, sir, Joseph said. One bright beautiful morning horse-drawn carriage stopped in front of the Parvis family's house. The passenger of the carriage was a noble woman named Discount is sure Keira paid her respects to welcome her arrival. I heard that you were invited by my father directly. Even though I'm not hosting a party, despite my many shortcomings, I will learn diligently, Keira said. Even though there is little time left until the party day, I believe you could handle it well, said the Discount as time was running short until Cosette arrived and Keira needed to obtain the clue to the return spell. Before that, however, Keira realized that her surveillance had been tightened due to the events of yesterday. Sending someone to the magic tower seemed difficult. If this Countess scolded, Keira for her lack of focus, Keira rarely attended noble events until now. The Discountess was also worried about her son, who never attended noble gatherings. Her son's name was young Master Shaw, whose only hobby was locking himself in the magic tower's study magic. At that moment, a brilliant plan emerged in Keira's mind. She spoke to the Discountess about wanting to meet young Master Shaw. The Discountess agreed and promised to arrange the meeting. As the Discountess had left, Keira headed to another room. Today she had an appointment with someone. She felt grateful because she found a great sorcerer, so she didn't need to contact the magic tower. A servant named Emily brought a book that Rose had entrusted to Keira. That was when Keira noticed some hidden servants and asked them to come out. Keira saw this as an opportunity to mingle with them. She asked about the contents of the book, as she had never read it before. The book told a love story between a servant and the crown prince. The servant informed Keira that she could meet the man from the novel. Keira had never thought about a love story to that extent. However, after hearing the story, it felt like being in a different world. Her heart longed to meet someone like ground. The servant asked if it was true that Miss Carroll would go to the dance party. They hoped to dress Keira in a beautiful party gown. Keira instructed her servants to discuss this matter with Rose. They also discussed the concept of wallflowers, people who remain quiet during dance parties. But there was no need to worry about that because Miss Keira would easily meet people. The real issue was who Keira would go with. Going with her father was impossible because he had no schedule with her. Shortly after, Sir Joseph arrived along with his knight companions. These were the people Keira is going to meet today. They were all going to the casino before Keira left. Her servant handed her a blue hat. I'll go ahead, Keira said. Continue previous story. The four of them walked through the corridor under the gentle afternoon sun. Should I really go to the casino? But no. Maybe I should cancel it now. Keira thought herself. She was still uncertain about going as she was about to step towards the exit door. Her younger brother, who had just woken up, called out to her. Carol startled and turned to her brother. Are you allowed to go out this early, sis? Where are you going? So aghast, Keira couldn't explain that she was going to the casino. She also knew that her brother was feeling bored at home. At that moment, Zach asked if he could go with his sister. Eventually, out of love for her brother, Keira allowed Sight to join her as I couldn't hide his surprise when he was told in the train that he was going to the casino. Keira explained her brother at the casino, they were going to his illegal Warmoth Imperial permission. Kira's intention was to explore and learn about the outside world. Not to gamble in the eyes of their friends that can, Keira looked as sweet as a pair of little chicks. That we can play as much as we want, said Wilford. Keira kicked Wilford's leg to make him stop talking too much. After a journey of some time, they arrived at the casino. They were greeted by a dazzling display of extravagance. Bright lights were shining in. The sounds of gambling machines filled the air. It was a world Keira had never seen before that Keira saw Archer and Sick in front of the roulette machine. Keira decided to try to luck on that machine. The operator guided her on how to play roulette. First, she placed chips on the desired numbers. She would choose 14 numbers. Once the selection was made, the dealer would spin the ball. If the ball stopped on the chosen number, she would win. Otherwise she would lose. This game relied on luck. Keira gave it a shot and ended up winning the game in the casino. She treated her brother with her winnings. Then Keira. Wanna try another game? It turned out that Keira won multiple times this round and she gathered bag full of chips. We don't want to be treated to a meal once the chips were exchanged. Meanwhile, Keira felt very happy and hoped to play together again. As the day it turned into night, she asked to go home. Then a casino employee came to inform Keira that she had a message from Count Xavier written on a piece of paper. The message invited her to play at an even larger venue. Please convey to Count Xavier that I have no intention of risking a lot of money and need to return promptly. Let him know that if he just wants to have fun, I'll be happy to join Keira, said she. End the paper back to the casino employee. In the distance there was a young man with blonde hair and red attire sitting. Among the bustling crowd, his eyes were fixed on Keira. This man was very handsome and a faint smile played on his sweet lips. Count says it's okay to play small and just have fun. I will score you to the VIP room, said the casino employee. Since Keira was treating them to a meal, she took only a handful of chips to enjoy the challenge from Count. The rest of the chips was still in a full bag. Her friends were surprised because this much money was usually used for just one meal. The casino attendant led Keira and her friends to the designated room, the VIP room. As the door opened, bearded man was sitting on a chair welcoming their arrival. He was a middle-aged man in a grey suit. He exchanged a few words with Keira before starting the game. The flower of the casinos? Poker. Would you perhaps like to play a different game? Count Xavier asked. Since I'm not very familiar with this, please go ahead as you like, Keira replied. They both play poker and in the first round Count Xavier didn't raise the stakes and passed. In the second round, Count Xavier had a straight, while Keira had a full house. Apparently Count Xavier couldn't remain calm even though he was just a young lady in the next round. Count Xavier won. Wilfred and Keira exchanged glances because they suspected that this was Count Xavier's cunning way of tricking them into wasting a lot of money. Given that the young lady appeared to have a lot of money. But they couldn't say anything as the young lady seemed happy. In the midst of the game, Keira realized something was amiss with Count Xavier. Apparently he was hiding cards in the sleeve of his shirt. He was cheating. At that moment, a handsome young man arrived and punched Xavier, pressing his head onto the table. After finishing Xavier off, the handsome young man turned to Keira and kissed the back of her hand. Keira blushed at this gesture. It reminded her of a book she had read Estella in the summer vacation. This encounter felt like a destined meeting from a novel. The man in front of her Boris. Strong resemblance to Lord Graham from the book. Then the man offered dirty. Keira couldn't refuse and accepted the man's offer. Zach was angry with Wilfred because it was Wilfred's idea to bring Keira here. I can't trust my sister or someone like him, as I told Wilfred. Gears, heart races. She looked at the handsome young man sitting near her. They were facing each other. Miss, if you don't mind, could you take off your hat? The man asked. Keira, blushing shyly, took off her hat. The handsome man flashed a captivating smile and introduced himself as Aiden Castro. A while ago, before they could sit here, Aiden and his two friends had been observing Keira for a while. To his friends, the beautiful, curious behavior seemed quite snobbish. They speculated that she came from a strict family. Rather than a woman who moves, everything is more fun with a woman like her. For this type, it's better to approach her naturally than to openly woo her. She's likely to be more vulnerable. Keira and Item locked eyes. Keira was truly nervous, facing such a handsome man as Mr. Aiden. It was the first time she felt like this towards a man. Adams gazed at his captivating smile. Mackay flustered miss. Would you like to have a meal with me this weekend? Aiden asked. Yes, Keira accepted the invitation from a distance. Wilfred, Raina, and Zayak observed the two of them. Rana had seen Aiden before. He was quite famous. He was the third or fourth son of this count. I had a bad reputation as a playboy who enjoyed doing any woman he pleased. When Zach saw that man touch his sister's cheek, he was furious. Fortunately, Keira held him back. Shortly after Keira returned to her friends, Zach was greatly concerned for his sisters. That man had touched her so casually. He told them he didn't reveal his identity because he didn't want that mandatory in well solely due to his family status. It also shared that there would be a date with the young gentleman at the end of the week. It was a coincidence that Keira Manuel looking for a party partner. Keira believed it was destiny. She was determined how to romantic relationship with a handsome man, just like in the novels. In the evening at home, all bathing in flowers with Rose, Keira recounted meeting the handsome man at the casino like something out of a novel. She explained how she concealed her identity and planned to reveal herself as a poor noble from a village during their weekend meal. As Rose Conda, her cure asked how regular couples dated, Rose shared that couples without much money usually walked around the capital on horseback or in hot air balloons. These were common means of transportation for ordinary people. Rose was worried that Miss Kara might not feel comfortable with such arrangements. However, Karen mentioned she had visited bar for common folks care. Imagine that a date in the sky with a hot air balloon would be incredibly romantic. Or a date in the city riding a horse would be quite bustling with many people around. It would be more enjoyable if it were just the two of them. The idea of renting a cruise ship briefly crossed her mind. She wasn't sure which type of date she would choose. That night she went to sleep. The heart-filled excitement. This morning the sun shines brightly under the clear blue sky. Keira is wearing a beautiful floral dress. Her current mood matches the color of her dress and the color of the flowers in front of her. Curious. Falling in love. Just then, Sir Joseph appears. He's surprised by the change in Keira. He's puzzled by the transformation in her. It's unusual for Keira. Full of this happy, Keira smiles softly and pins the flower from her ear onto Sergio's ear before bidding farewell. Well, even Keira can't believe what they're seeing there all. It looks so happy and unlike her usual self. William thinks to himself that Keira might have a boyfriend. Upon hearing the word boyfriend, Joseph is reminded of the man Keira met at the bar yesterday, the man they call Sir Aidan. Sir Aidan, who will be taking Keira on a date this weekend, Raina says that women should avoid dating Item to prevent getting a bad reputation before marriage. In order to protect his niece, Sir Joseph starts to gather information about when and where Miss Keira will have her date. And a long way today of the date, Keira dresses in a red dress with brown shoes and a white skirt. Her long hair cascades in the wind. Before leaving, she had a debate with Rose about her outfit cheer. It wanted to look beautiful and luxurious, but Rose suggested wearing something simple to maintain her role as a commoner. The man she's been waiting for arrives. Sir Aidan is wearing a white jacket and looks like an angel descending from the sky. Well, they are meeting Joseph, Zayek, Raina and Wilford are watching from a distance. The four of them are planning to disrupt Keira's date with Item. Zach is not willing to let his sister get close to another man. When Keira and Aidan are about to change locations to go to the restaurant, they quickly follow suit. Keira and Aidan are currently sitting at a dining table in a highly renowned restaurant in this city. Aidan appears quite area towards Keira. He orders expensive and hard-to-find food, claiming that it's not commonly available in the village. Keira remembers. Ross is advised that she should be humble and compliment Aidan. She pretends to be nervous and says that it's her first time coming to this place. ADD and starts to get suspicious because at the casino Keira was dressed luxuriously and looked very wealthy. But her attitude towards the wait staff now being so natural raises Aidan's suspicion even further. Then Keira asks if Aidan can accompany her next Wednesday, adding to clients explaining he already has plans with someone else on that day. He mentions having a reading club meeting. Keira's suggested date with a hot air balloon. Item is hesitant because he always gets motion sickness. His reasoning is that the entrance to the hot air balloon is too far away. Deer laughs and assures him that the hot air balloon is right in front of them. Adding can't hide his surprise and starts to wonder how much money Keira used to rent something as luxurious as a hot air balloon, which is a treasure of the Empire. He also believes that it's highly unlikely for the Emperor to casually lend such valuable things to nobles. I did suspect that Keira might be a distant relative of the Emperor. You look upset if what happened earlier caught the attention of many people. Just ignore it, Keira says. Aim is left speechless and can only follow Keira's lead. This situation also occurs with Sir Joseph and the others who have been tailing them, seeing Keira's smiling face. Radiating happiness, Sir Joseph feels a bit uneasy. He believes this should not be allowed to go too far. He starts devising a plan to disrupt Keira and Aidan's upcoming dance party date next week. In the evening, when the sky is turned into twilight, Keira returns home. She's disappointed because Aidan already has plans, which means he won't be able to accompany her to the dance party tomorrow. A nobleman dressed in regal attire approaches her. A handsome man with neatly combed hair invites Keira to a dance party next Wednesday with him. It turns out the man was Sir Joseph in disguise. Here, with some delighted that she held Sir Joseph's hand and told him that the words from earlier should not be taken back. Joseph didn't expect Keira to accept his invitation so willingly. Then realizing Sir Joseph's face turning red, himself feeling embarrassed, Keira quickly ran inside, leaving Sir Joseph. She was flustered by all of this. Sir Joseph, who had liked Keira since they first met, couldn't accept that Keira had to go on a date with Item. Perhaps this is what jealousy is. During the evening tea time, Keira's younger brother Zach shouted, thinking his sister had gone gambling again. A servant mentioned that lately Care admin looking happier than ever before. And it's true, Keira felt that her life had become lighter since meeting Aiden. She shared that she met Item today and felt incredibly happy here. Hope to marry Aiden someday. ZX simply agreed and then fed a piece of cake to his sister. Item came to the transportation management office, visibly angry, inquired about who had rented the hot air balloon. However, the transportation company kept it a secret and refused to reveal the identity of the person who rented the balloon. Aiden was naturally very curious. Two noble women suddenly appeared and told him that the hot air balloon that landed in the plaza earlier in the afternoon was actually faulty. Balloon. Adam was shocked, realizing he could have died that afternoon. However, he still wondered who Keira was and whether she might be a distant relative of the Empire. He hoped not to encounter Keira again. This morning, a bill from the hot air balloon office arrived at Lover's office. Initially, he thought it might be a billionaire. When Robert explained openly that the bill came from Keira, who would just go on a date with a man who, it was very surprised you're called. A few days ago, Karen discussed the dance party, romantic affairs, and even marriage. Little Big promptly stood up from his chair and hurried to me. Keira. In another room, the servants along with Carol were busy with Kira's blue dress that she would wear to the dance party. The diamond-studded blue dress looked luxurious and elegant. All the servants were impressed by the dress. Then they heard a knock on the door, and when the servants opened it, they were startled to see Ludwig there. The handsome Lendrick entered, inquired about the hot air balloon bill. Care explained that the rental price wasn't too high. Let me went straight to the point, asking about the real reason Keira rented the hot air balloon. He focused on the topic of the man she had a date with, which was the reason for her wrecking the balloon. Keira was very surprised that her father knew about her closeness to Iton. However, she explained that their relationship wasn't that close. So what Robert said was true. Let him infect himself. In that case, I'll be more careful with expenses, Keira said. Let him. It didn't know what to say to Keira. He was actually very concerned about her well-being, but he couldn't express it directly to his daughter. Care herself as afraid her father would forbid her from attending the dance party. So she made an excuse to want to go to bed early. Landry left the room. As he walked through the corridor, illuminated by sunlight, he couldn't help but remember a young Keira wearing a green dress and running around him, calling him father. The day of the dance party arrived. Carol looked stunning in the old blue dress from yesterday. The deep blue dress, adorned with diamonds and beaded flowers, made her resemble a beautiful fairy in springtime. Her grandfather would also attend the party, at least before Cosette arrives should prepare herself to face the worst situation. Outside, Sir Joseph was already waiting, looking exceptionally handsome. He was also dazzled by Keira's beauty. They soon headed to the dance party venue. The attendees at the dance party couldn't believe that the Parvis princess was participating in the dance event. Upon arrival, the host gave a welcoming speech and an awkward conversation ensued between the young lady and the host. Joseph promptly intervened and invited Keira to move elsewhere. Keira sat in chair. But what is to come? Will Keira continue to be happy and find herself? What will happen to her father and her wicked sister? Will she confess her growing feelings towards Sir Joseph? Comment Keira below for part 2 and why not check out this epic recommendation. Crazy princess who fakes her madness to avoid execution.